And I can't hold it much longer. Gonna let go so I can be free.
Happy Friday and happy end to the GM meetings. I know everyone was just absolutely riveted to find out what was going on there.
Is it when you add fried chicken?
Did anything even happen there?
We learned about how to make a salad.
You learned how to make a salad? Well, you put lettuce in a bowl and throw in some other stuff and maybe put some dressing on it? How do you make a salad? I don't know about.
No, I caught a commercial there. What is a salad?
Oh.
A salad.
That's on. Hey, sorry, I have YouTube up. I'm trying to participate in
No,
the chat on a Friday.
you are participating in the chat. I love when the random ads pop up, but also subscribe because AJ wants you to subscribe to the YouTube channel and join us in the chat, please.
What
are you going to participate today? We're at
what are we at today?
63,000 if you round up from 0.9.
Yeah, let's go. We need to get to 70 here by Thanksgiving. Let's go, people.
Ooh, in 2 weeks. 7,000
let's go.
Humans or bots or anybody, whoever.
All you got to do is hit, there's a little button, right? Even Scott, who is the cheapest guy on the planet, can go over here like this and go, boop, it's one button and it's free. Even Scott can afford that.
You know how we did the Scrooge Index where we looked at the team's revenue and then how much they spend based off that? If you did a Scrooge Index on me, you'd be like, I'm the opposite of what AJ just said. What's coming in versus what is spent? I'm Steve Cohen status, Kratz.
You're either breaking even or you're losing. You're living it up.
2 rents. Anyway, let's go over a guy actually on that topic who is looking to spend more of his money. We'll charge the damn mound.
Charging the mound.
Exclusive to the New York Post, John Heyman reporting Steve Cohen will be heading west to meet with Juan Soto and Scott Boras. Presumably, other owners will be lining up meetings as well. So yes, confirming from yesterday, the report where AJ was out, but there was a random Instagram account that had actually a pretty good following that said Soto was already signed. So that account's dead. But anyway, the sweepstakes really has just begun, AJ. Do you know about this? Like, if you are Juan Soto status in today's world, do you know what they do? Because really, he's going to sign for whoever gives him the most money, especially with the Yankees and events. And I know you want to make him feel good. He hasn't been part of the organization, but do you know what they do nowadays for these guys? Is it just a dinner and maybe a slideshow?
I don't know. I remember back in the day, the White Sox and some teams, especially the White Sox, used to have us do videos when they were trying to court certain players. Especially if you had a relationship with them. So I'm sure Stevie Cohen's not flying out to LA, which I happen to be at right now. I might sneak into this meeting with my phone and I might be
like, I just want to know what they do in the meetings.
They just talk about what's happening. I think Stevie Cohen's not flying out to LA or Orange County, where I think Boras might be based in Orange County, and sitting down and saying, hey, I just wanted to buy you a free dinner, Juan. I think that, he's coming out there with some financial power, showing them what they have in the organization, and also saying, hey, this is what we have coming in the future, and this is what I'm willing to do, and trying to get them to sign on the dotted line. Listen, I hope this happens quick so we can move on to other people. Like Shohei last year happened fairly quickly, but I don't want to be sitting here all into February saying, God, we're still talking about Juan Soto. Come on. Let's get this done, people.
I don't want it done. I want it done. I want maybe early Christmas present, maybe like a December 20th kind of date, and not on a Friday afternoon at like 6. I want it like a Wednesday 2 p.m. announcement. But I don't know. I obviously have no idea in this world. I know that they're not coming out there with some slideshows. They probably already know what Juan likes to eat, where they're going to meet. What I want to know is what kind of place is Stevie Cohen you know what? I don't like this place. Juan likes sushi. Is he showing up and just having drinks and not even eating sushi? Or is it like, I'm doing whatever you need? Because I think they had Yamamoto, if I remember right, Cohen had Yamamoto out to his house when they were doing that recruiting. So did they fly?
That's because he flew out there to the East Coast. Soto's not doing that.
Why not?
I mean, he should. I've heard that Steve Cohen has a really cool art collection, and it's worth a visit over there. But they're trying to say, hey, we'll go to you. David Stearns went to Japan, we found out about a month and a half ago, to go watch Roki Sasaki, and apparently many other teams will do that too with one of their leaders in their front office. So I think it's a sign of respect.
I heard he didn't like him.
Did you really hear that?
Well. Yeah, this guy Lance was on the other day, and he said that his miles per hour were down a couple. So David Stearns said, "Nope, we're out."
David Stearns said, "No, we don't want this guy who has better stuff than Yamamoto."
Yeah, we changed our mind. I'm kidding. Obviously, yeah. I mean, listen, the best free agents are going to get courted. Like I said, I remember one time I think the Bulls were trying to get LeBron James, and they had all the White Sox players do a video montage for LeBron James. And I'm like, hey, LeBron, Chicago's a cool town. Come hang out. We share the same birthday. Let's go. I don't know what I said, but it was something stupid like that.
Oh, I'd love to see that video.
I'm sure he was like, oh, AJ Pierzynski wants to hang out with me?
Right?
Wow, yippity-yee.
I mean, the couple of times I met him, he could not have blown me off faster, so it's all good.
Did you meet him multiple times?
Yeah, so I mean, he was a Nike guy, right? And the guy who used to do Griffey stuff was then put on LeBron, and so randomly, it was super random at both times. It was like in a hotel in Orlando, and I was just happened to be there, and I see the Nike guy, and I'm like, "Oh, what are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I think he was at the Cavs at the time or Lakers, whatever." And he's like, "Oh, LeBron's right here. You want to meet him?" And I was like, "Yeah, you know what? Why not?" So hey, how you doing? It's like the old, "Nice to meet you." Right?
Oh, that's gross. I hate that.
You know
that's
what
gross.
I mean? Like.
Yeah, that's gross.
Drives me crazy. What drives me crazy about that, though, is listen, at least give me the courtesy to give me the look in the eye, nice to meet you handshake, not the right. I mean, it's not like I'm a random person walking up to you. Clearly, I know somebody in the world.
That's gross. That really sets me off. And anyone does that, It's the same amount of time to do the direct handshake, look in the eye for a sec. Hey, great to meet you. I'm going to run off, but great to see you, or great to meet you, or whatever. Literally, it's the same time. It's the same 5 seconds. But this, oof. Kratz, I know you're a man of character. Oh. If you heard of anybody in your life that did that, you would lose it.
I don't live in that world. So no, yes, you're exactly right. I am not about that, but I'm pretty sure AJ wasn't just like, hey, LeBron. He was like, hey, LeBron, remember the video I made for you? Like, do you remember me? Do you remember? I was on there. I was like, come to Chicago. It's great.
No.
Oof. All right. So on the topic of Chicago, I actually have 2 payroll little news bits. We'll save one for later, but let's hit the Cubs because I think that one's a little bit simpler, and then we'll do the Giants later, but we're going to talk to Marc Topkin soon. So our friends at The Athletic, Patrick Mooney and Sahadev Sharma, who are also our teammates at the FT Network and host Northside Territory, they're insiders. They're all over it, okay? So they said that the Cubs and Jed Hoyer do not intend to deviate from the course of the long-term plan, and essentially saying they're out on the big boys, Soto, Corbin Burnes, and that they can do a lot of damage with trades and I guess more of the mid-level signings. And we'll get one of them on soon to really do a therapy session. But am I missing something? What's the plan? Is the plan to be an 82-win team every year and finish strong?
I don't understand it. They're the Cubs. They're the Cubs. I mean, listen, as someone that lived in Chicago for 8 years, played in Chicago, for the weak underlings, the little stepchildren of the Cubs, the White Sox, right? They were always the team that would go out and make the big moves, and now they're not making the big moves. And look, since 2016, yes, they finally broke the curse. They won the World Series. They've added a hotel they own. They've added all these restaurants that they own. They've added this big area where they do concerts that they own, all this stuff. And now they're spending less when they're making more. It doesn't make sense to me. Listen, Ricketts family, he bought the team for like $400 million about, 12, 15 years ago. And now it's worth like $2 billion or whatever the numbers are. It's some crazy number. I mean, let's go spend some money, make the Cub fans happy, and go try to win with big name players. You just saw the Yankees and the Dodgers. They're in the World Series. Why? Because they spend, and they were in the World Series. And that's how you got to do it in today's game. Yes, it's cute when you can develop, but even a team like the Astros, even the Cubs in 2016, they had to go out and get Lester. They had to go get Lackey. They had to go get the big name guys to finish it off. Well, it's time for them to take the next step. And if you're not going to spend on the big boys, then I don't know what you're doing.
Maybe they don't believe it. Maybe they don't believe that they're ready in the next step. But you can't sit there as a front office of the Cubs and try to sell to Cubs fans who are ravenous that, well, you know, we're going to stay the course. You can stay the exact course. You can build for the future while still investing in the present. There is an opportunity that you have, and maybe they don't believe it. Maybe they think they have too many leaks in the end of their rotation. They have too many leaks in their bullpen, and you know their offense isn't quite consistently there. I would disagree. I think they have a lot that is a lot of pieces that are established there, and they've kind of gone in, like, to me, push it the rest of the way. Just because you spend in free agency does not mean that, oh, you know what, we're hamstringing our prospects, our youth movement. No, you're not. That's what everybody should look at for the, you know, what the Dodgers do great is they're still investing in their player development and they're still getting players out of it. You can invest in free agency. You brought Cody Bellinger back, not because he's got a nice smile, because you think he could be part of your future. You can't invest in him and say, he's the superstar that we needed. No, you still have to go in on that. And I'm so surprised that they said this.
Well, Cody Bellinger brought himself back, first of all, because he had the player option. So
yeah, but what's the point to saying this?
Last year.
I know. Right.
My question is, what's the point to saying this? Who knows? Maybe Juan Soto will take a Shohei deal, right? You can sign him for $2 million a year for the next 10 years and worry about the 68 down the road. Like, I mean, I know that's not what people are saying he's going to do, but how do you know that unless you try? Like, why rule yourself out already? Like, that just seems odd to me, especially a team that has as much money as the Cubs do.
There's a parameters conversation that goes on. That's why when you talk to really any agent, but I know, you know, with Boras, for example, they'll start to talk about what the parameters are going to look like. And the Cubs are already ruling themselves out. This happened last year with the Mariners and Shohei Ohtani. They're like, yeah, we're not going to swim in those waters. So I do think they're trying to level expectations. They get rewarded by a fan base and an historic ballpark, an historic franchise, awesome Chicago summers, and people show up regardless. And I do think they're subscribing to the, for lack of a better term, 54% theory. I mean, that's what they went into last year. They were like, hey, we're projected to be about a fringe wildcard team. So if things go our way, we might make a run at a World Series, and it costs significantly less to do that. And we can be playing to that kind of scenario almost every year. And I think a lot of teams are looking at that. But I think that there's a pendulum swinging right now. And the Dodgers just spent a ton of money. The Rangers had Seager, Semien, Eovaldi, etc., and Montgomery at the trade deadline, who was really good 2 years ago. I think you're getting a little smack in the face to those teams that want to try and project themselves to like 86 wins and say things will break right and it'll probably be 89 and then we'll make a wild card run. Not sure about that. I think that's actually a bad plan. That's really actually what we talked about 10 years ago as the muddled middle. You're basically putting yourselves in a position where you might not even make the playoffs. So anyway, we'll keep talking about it. We'll definitely get those guys on at some point, but I highly recommend listening to what they're saying. And that's Hadev Sharma and Patrick Mooney. Northside Territory is the show. Check it out. Here it is. So you can subscribe to their YouTube channel and also check out the pod. They put out a few this week. One's called What's Going On in the Cubs Front Office. One's about who stays and who goes. And the most recent one, which is released about 24 hours ago, the early buzz about the Cubs at the GM meetings. Next team to hit, the Rays with Marc Topkin. Where are they playing? Who are they signing? Hey, want to do a shout out to Shin-Soo Choo? I'm sure you guys both faced him, right?
I played against him a lot.
Good ball player. He just retired.
He was a good player. I mean, he had everything. He would just, I don't get it. Yeah, I don't get even when he was done and went to the KBO. I know he wanted to go back home, but I thought he still had a lot left in the tank to be able to play in the big leagues. But he ended up finishing, I think, four more years in the KBO, which is pretty cool. But man, I think he was an underrated player. Not like the most underrated, but definitely an underrated player who was out there every day.
What do you remember, AJ?
He was a good player, man. He just did everything. He could hit for power. He got big hits. He was a great outfielder. He could throw. He could run. He was one of those. He was an Indian, before he was a Guardian, and he was just one of those guys that came up. You're like, oh man, not this guy again. He's going to get a big hit to beat us. And he always had a smile on his face. That was one of my favorite things about playing against him. He always had a smile on his face, no matter what was happening. He'd come up and he'd hit, and he'd always be like so happy. And I'm just like, man, how can you be this happy all the time?
He's appreciative to be in the big leagues. I mean, he had a really nice career. I mean, put together 16 big league seasons, 4 KBO seasons, 275 batting average, 824 OPS. His career on base percentage was 377. He was on base almost 38% of the time. 122 OPS plus. It's a really good ball player, solid for a very long time. So congratulations, tip of the cap to Shin-Soo Choo, who calls it a baseball pro career.
By the way, before we go, I got to ask this question. Like, is it too early for this? Like, can you see
No,
this?
not for me. What?
I mean, it's November, 9th, 8th today?
Yeah, the Christmas decoration
Should
action.
we wait till Thanksgiving?
Well, yeah. I mean, my question is, can that cup be a Thanksgiving themed cup, and then we can do Christmas, because then you still have another month?
That's kind of what I'm thinking. Like, do they
Oh,
not
well,
have
then,
like
yeah.
a turkey? Do they not have a turkey and cranberry styled Starbucks cup or drink? We
I
could
mean, you
come
still
up
get
with something.
pumpkin, right? You can still get pumpkin lattes, can't you?
No, I think pumpkin's gone. Now it's
Yeah.
sugar
That's too
cookie.
early.
Which,
Now
by the
it's
way,
turkey fat latte.
yeah, right? With cranberry sauce? Oh, good.
Gravy latte.
Our friend Marc Topkin covers the Rays for the Tampa Bay Times, and there's a lot of action going on in the Tampa, St. Pete area. Topper, great to have you on. So I'm going to get right to biz because it's the offseason. Every team has their needs. And for me, I'm saying this mostly in seriousness. Their number one need is a home. Agree?
Oh, no doubt. The idea that they need a catcher and some more offense and a few other things is definitely secondary. They've got to get this situation figured out. It's not just up to them either. I mean, MLB is involved in this. There's some political issues going on here locally as far as where they should play. But yeah, as we sit here today, I know AJ's upset about the holiday Starbucks cup already, but the commissioner said he hopes to have this resolved by Christmas, and I think that that's probably sooner the better for the Rays. I mean, they literally don't know. There's certainly we can narrow down some options through a lot of logic and some breadcrumbs that the commissioner's dropped in his comments, but there's been no decision. The Rays haven't said anything as far as their preferences, so I'm not sure.
So should this be a Major League Baseball problem, or should this be a Rays problem to figure out and Major League Baseball to say yay or nay to the solution?
I think it probably has to be a little bit of both, because I think MLB is going to have to facilitate this, especially if it's one of the local spring training parks. I mean, I don't know that the Rays. Well, I mean, it'd be interesting if the Rays owner, Stu Sternberg, called the Yankees owner, Hal Steinbrenner, and said, hey, what would you charge us to use your facility for the season? That'd be a hell of a – you guys could probably like close circuit that or something. But I think MLB is going to have to get involved. The commissioners also said that they'll be open to some schedule changes if they go to one of the spring stadiums that has a minor league team. Then that schedule is going to have to be adjusted somewhere along the way. So it starts with the city of St. Pete. They're responsible for the Trop. They had the insurance policy on it. There should be a report in the next week. It was supposed to be today. It looks like it's pushed back a few days. A rough estimate of the cost and the viability of fixing it, because there's so many layers to this. I don't want to drag this out on you guys, but are they only looking for a home for a few months because the Trop could be fixed at some point this season? Are they looking for a home for 1 year and the Trop will be ready to go for next year? Or is the Trop not going to be fixed and they're looking at a 3-year home until their planned new stadium is going to be built? And, oh, by the way, that's not as 100% official as we thought, because there's still some votes coming up on some bonds. And obviously there's a lot of other needs in this community right now, given the damage of the hurricane. So there's a lot of questions here, but it's about 4 months and a week or two until opening day on March 27th. The Rays are supposed to host the Rockies, and they don't know where that game's going to be.
So this is my question for you. I've heard the Yankees obviously is a viable option, okay? But do they want to do that if you're the Rays? Not only because it's the Yankees, but also because you would prove a lot of people right that say they should build their stadium across the bridge in Tampa anyways. And if all of a sudden in Tampa they get, they sell out Steinbrenner Field at whatever it holds, 10, 12,000 every night, and then people are like, well, maybe we shouldn't build the stadium across the bay in St. Pete, and we should move it over to where everyone said by Amalie Arena and the convention center and all that in downtown Tampa. Is that something they're looking at? Because I've heard Dunedin is a possibility. I've heard Clearwater is a possibility. But if they're going to be there for 3 years, and I'm Dunedin and I'm the Blue Jays, I'm like, yeah, MLB, let's fix our stadium up to big league standards. So for years on end, our spring training home is awesome and people want to come here. If I'm the Phillies, I'm like, yeah, put hundreds of millions into our spring training home to make it better. I don't know. There's like all these things, and none of them is a good option for the Rays.
Are you saying people might be selfish when they come to trying to provide a solution here? And it won't all be done out of benevolence and what's best for the best interests of baseball?
Come on.
I mean, there's a lot of layers to this. Yeah, I mean, sure, I think if they do play in Tampa and they do, it holds about 10-5, maybe they can put some bleachers up and get a couple thousand more in there. Sure, will that give some people a chance to say, oh, I told you so? Well, there never was a legitimate way to build that stadium in Tampa. They tried that a couple times. They never felt there was a deal that would work for them. So I don't know that gives you a chance to say, I told you so, but I don't think it's revisionist history. I don't think that changes what they're planning to do in St. Pete. If it's 3 years versus 1 year, I think you also wonder, will they end up going to a different location? Because those summers, and I know it was back, I think it's in 1997, AJ, you played in the Florida State League. I don't know if you guys they had cars and buses or whatever back then, or how you got around horseback or something.
Horse and buggy.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of nights of rain delays, of BP getting banged, of pitchers, not being able to throw pens, of games being delayed. I mean, it's, drainage is improved, staff's improved, having MLB grounds crews will help and all that. And maybe you start the games at 8 and you wait till those daily showers get done with and just take the rain delay as part of your schedule. But, it's going to be a challenge. And I think the 1 year, 3 year thing is a big part of where the solution is. I think what they don't want to do is have to move a bunch of times. I mean, the idea was floated early on, play in one of these spring training parks in April, May, and June, and then go share with the Marlins in rainy season. But, then you're moving during the season, you're relocating, which is also vaguely similar to the plan the Rays had once pitched of playing half the seasons here and half the seasons in Montreal, but we won't get into that right now.
So what's the deal with the Trop? I mean, do you think that it's actually going to be repaired to be playable? It sounded like there was a report, it might have been from your paper, I don't remember, but about the insurance premiums changing. I know that MLB and the Rays aren't suddenly going to be like, sure, let's pay $200 million to re-roof this place or to make it playable as an outside park, which is still just stupid anyway, when they're leaving soon, and even just using up resources and construction and all that in an area that has so much to build back up.
Yeah, I mean, all good points. I do think, just to clarify, one thing is it is the city of St. Pete that has the insurance policy, so they'll have to pay the costs of fixing the stadium. But you're exactly right. I mean, just driving around St. Pete, there are still, many people whose lives are still out by the curb, that had to take everything out of their house, and it hasn't been picked up yet. It's a massive undertaking to clean up all the debris here throughout St. Pete. I live out on St. Pete Beach. The barrier islands, obviously, even hit even harder. But no, I think that's one of many equations in this is, what will it cost to fix the Trop? How long will it take to fix the Trop? Is it worth fixing the Trop? You do have this 3 year window, but like I said, there's a little bit of things that have to happen for that new stadium to become official. And you even wonder will this cause any delay even if it all goes smoothly on the paperwork standpoint, does this delay the start of the new stadium in any way? I don't know this, but I'm just asking. Supplies are going to be at a premium. Workforce is going to be at a premium. There's so much else to be done here. And, it also was a pretty aggressive time frame to start sometime in 25 and plan to play there in 28. So what if it became an extra year and you need 4 years of an interim home? Does that add to the thought process fixing the Trop? So there's so many layers to this decision, and they all need to be made pretty soon.
All right, a couple questions here. Would they move? I mean, Orlando would be great. We'd love to build a ballpark for you guys and have be the Orlando Rays. You could play at Disney for a couple of years, have the lockers with no seats in them. I mean, the Rays have done that before, so would they move? And Oakland's wide open, right? Oakland would love to welcome you guys out there. I mean, the Oakland Rays in the AL East would be amazing for travel, but Major League Baseball's never really cared about that. So, I mean, you can fly cross country every third day and be like, yeah, look at this. It's an easy schedule for the Rays.
I don't think MLB would want to put a team in Oakland when they just endorsed the current team to leave, right? But that one
just said, though, common sense doesn't really fall hand in hand sometimes. So, it's a ready-made ballpark for them.
Well, yeah, it's great condition too, right? I mean, it'd be hard to imagine moving into a worse place, right? And they could somehow. I mean, I think Montreal was a very legitimate option. And just doing some reporting, found out that's unavailable. They're doing a massive construction project there, ironically, on replacing the roof. Durham wondered about that. Then the Durham Bulls, obviously a very successful AAA team, they came out and said that they're willing to help their parent, but they can't allow them to play there the whole season. Obviously, that would disrupt their own schedule too much. So, I mean, could they move? I guess. And if it was a 3-year thing versus a 1-year thing, maybe that makes it even more so. But I think the initial comments from the commissioner provide the best guidance, which is his preference. And he said they're planning to do everything they can to make it work to keep them local, because you do have a fan base here you don't want to disengage, right? And make all the jokes you want about it's 3 guys or whatever. Nobody cares, et cetera, et cetera. But this is a team that does get good radio ratings, does get good TV ratings. And they don't want to kind of cut off that fan base and then come back when this new stadium's built in 3 years and say, oh, yeah, remember us. Yeah, come back, support us. And so if there's some way to kind of keep that continuity, I think that would be the preference. But, again, coming back to, is the Trop back in play or not, or are you looking for a 3-year home is really a major issue here.
Level of courting did the Rays actually put on Juan Soto? Because AJ, I try to equate it, AJ in high school wrote a letter to Heidi Klum to see if they could go out on a date. Is that similar to the Rays talking to Juan Soto?
She said yes, by the way. She said yes, but I told her she lived too far away.
I got
no long distance.
I got to think the Rays have a better chance of hooking up with Juan Soto than AJ did with Heidi Klum. But,
no, that's not true. She asked me to come be her umbrella person at her Sports Illustrated shoot, but I said no. Who wants to go to Fiji in the wintertime? Not me.
Yeah, you'd be really bored there. No scenery or anything. Look, I think the Rays, I mean, it got reported. I have no doubt it happened, but I also have covered this team, forever basically, and know how they operate pretty well. And, do they check it? They check in on every player. It's kind of like, I think that would be kind of baseball front office malpractice if you didn't, right? And, sometimes with the way they handle this, and this isn't firsthand saying this is exactly how the conversation went, but they tell the player, they tell the agent, look, you know what we have to offer. If we're not going to outbid everybody for this, $600 million 15-year deal or whatever it's going to be. But if that doesn't materialize, he doesn't like the options and he wants to do a 1 or 2 year deal at a place, that's, near home for him, that offers a conducive environment, a winning team, no state income taxes, whatever, is the right one that appeals, we'd be willing to talk. They've had those conversations before with some big name players. Obviously, they had an initial conversation about Freddie Freeman a couple years ago, and that took on some real life, and that came down to the wire. He picked the Dodgers. Seems like that worked out okay for him and for them. But so, yeah, I do think that that's a legitimate thing, but I also don't think it's a realistic thing, if that makes sense to parse those two words that way.
Copper, what's the Rays free agent pitch? Hey, come here. We don't know where we're playing for the next 3 to 4 years. It's not Sacramento, but it could be the Phillies spring training. It could be the Braves spring training. It could be the Blue Jays spring training. It could be Oakland. We don't know. But come here and sign with us. We're going to do great.
Well, I know you're a loyal Tampa Bay Times reader, so I'll spoil your Sunday column for you a little bit early because I know you'll be waking up to read it. But I asked Erik Neander that basic question the other day, and he said, look, everyone knows what our situation is. We don't know the answer right now. What we do know is we have a great track record of treating players well. We have a great track record of being a successful team. We have a great coaching staff that's well known throughout the industry. People like playing for this group. And we assume that people will trust us that we're going to get this figured out as soon as we can. So it's not a bad pitch, but also let's be realistic here. They don't bid for the top free agents realistically. They're not in the running for these guys. They're usually going for the guys that are available toward the end of the offseason or the middle that have maybe one or two other offers, a 1-year deal, a 2-year deal. There are some exceptions. The Zach Eflin deal, they kind of jumped the market on that a couple years ago. But for the most part, they're not competing with the teams where player's going to say, well, no, I'm not even going to think about you guys. You don't have a situation here. But is it a hindrance? Is it a factor? Absolutely. I don't think any player is going to sign with them until they know, at least, like if the Rays were to say, hey, it's going to be Clearwater or Tampa, we're just working out the details, see which ownership group we can work this out with. You can still live in this area. We're going to play here. Okay, now you still got to deal with the summer and the heat and all that, but at least they knew. But, yeah, I don't think a player can sign if they don't know if they're going to have to live in Orlando or if they're going to be living here in the Tampa Bay area or they're going to be moving during the season or they could end up at one of these out-of-state locations. We did a little research on this, and maybe you guys knew this. I didn't until looked it up. The largest stadium, taking Oakland out, the largest baseball stadium in the country without a full-time, full-season occupant, Omaha, Nebraska, home of the College World Series. Maybe they go there. I mean, it might infringe on the Royals. AAA team plays nearby, but that's a available facility too. So there's all kinds of ideas you can come up with.
Field of Dreams.
Field of Dreams, Dyersville, Iowa. Let's do it.
That'd be sick.
I'm ripping Drake anyway, so here, let's go back to Iowa, sure.
Orlando, here we go. You'd love to.
That'd be a long commute for you, Topper. It's a long commute.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, by the way, Drake at Stetson in 2 weeks, AJ, if you want to go.
Where at?
At Stetson's 6,000-seat stadium somewhere in DeLand.
Well, come on down, Topper. Are you going to be there?
I'm thinking about it. I'll give you a shout.
That's too far. That's too much I-4 time for you.
Kratz, you got last licks.
Yeah. So we talked about the team. Not sure where they're going to play. What are their needs? What is it? You mentioned catcher. You mentioned, all this stuff about that's surrounding how they're gonna play, all this stuff. This is a playoff contending team that took a step back last year. And what are their needs and how are they going to address them? I'm not even talking about the pitch of, hey, you know what? Come enjoy Clearwater.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're pissed off. They finished 80-82. They've been in the playoffs 5 straight years. They had a winning record 6 straight years. That all kind of stopped last year. So they need to improve their offense. They had their worst offense in franchise history, and that includes some of those bad Devil Rays teams. This was a worse offense in a lot of the stats that you can use that show that. So they need to figure that out. They definitely need to improve at catcher. Ben Rortvedt did a good job, picked him up right before the season started. Rene Pinto was supposed to be the starter from the right hand hitting side. He wasn't very good. Alex Jackson got a way too long of a turn. He didn't do much, obviously, offensively, historically bad. So they got to figure that out. I don't know that they're calling you back, Kratzy, but you did okay when you were here, so maybe so. And some other.
I'm available.
They've got to find a way to boost the offense. Catcher, shortstop, AJ. Yeah, why not? I mean, you're almost 50, right? You can get in there.
I couldn't be worse. Sometimes I feel like that. I might be.
You know what? After watching their catchers try to hit this year, I'm actually in full agreement with you. You could not be worse. I am fully on board with that.
Yeah.
So, maybe look, shortstop. Taylor Wall's a great defensive player, but obviously they didn't get much offense there. They like Caminero at third. They like Brandon Lau at second. They just picked up his option. They keep Yandy Diaz. He's back. They want to find Aranda some at bats. Josh Lowe's a really good player who had a bad year last year. Siri is arbitration eligible. You got to live with the bad, but the good can be pretty promising in center. They could use another outfielder. I mean, they like Johnny DeLuca that they got in the Dodgers trade, but probably could do a little better, or another fourth outfielder. And then look, they got a ton of pitching. They've got a starting pitcher to trade. They've got 7, or if Rasmussen goes back into the rotation, they've got 8 starters. So everybody wants starting pitching. They should be able to find a way to trade a pitcher to get some offense. Maybe you sign a lesser or 2 free agent once you know where you're going to play. And then they feel like they can go from there with a really good group of prospects that are going to move from AA to AAA this year, and maybe a couple even in the big leagues by the end of the season.
Topper,
Okay.
yes or no question. Will Wander Franco ever play in the big leagues again?
I mean,
Yes or
I don't
no?
have the expertise to answer that, but I've learned a lot more about the Dominican legal system than I ever thought I would have to. It seems like between the legal issues with the Dominican, the immigration issues of getting a visa when you have these type of issues against you, and MLB still has to weigh in on this. That investigation is kind of like paused, waiting for the end of the legal system. But on the other hand, I don't know that I can tell you no, and I also know that the Rays have $172 million pending that they owe him, that the answer to that question determines what happens with that money.
True. I mean, I say whatever. The chances that he's allowed in the country, from what I've read, are pretty low right now, just on that
Right.
alone, on the court case.
Right, but look, there's a court date set. I think it's December 12th. If just hypothetically, if he were to be cleared of all charges, if MLB were to do its investigation, assess some type of suspension, even if it was a year or 2, at the end of that, he's still got a valid contract. And then I think it would be a very interesting situation to see if the Rays or any other team at that point, if they were to engage in conversations, would want to put him back out on the field. I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay. All right. So then we'll mark it about a month from now. We'll see what happens there. Topper, thank you. A lot of action going on off the field for the team. Hopefully next time we chat, there will be a more permanent temporary home for the Rays. Appreciate it, man.
No problem, guys. Anytime.
Thank you. Check out Topper's work in the Tampa Bay Times. Give him a follow. We'll post some of these clips. We'll be right back. I feel like the theme in the past week has actually been Roki Sasaki, because we're going to talk about all the free agents for a while, but it does sound like we're going to get an answer on his situation pretty soon. There was a report from Francis Romero saying it's expected in the next few days. I was doing a lot of reading on this on an airplane last night, and it does look like technically he still could get posted as late as, I'm looking for the date that I wrote down, the 15th of December, but the team wants to get it figured out. Like, if he's going to get posted, you want to do that. I'm just curious what's going on behind the scenes, Kratz. Like, hey, we don't want you to go until we can get $55-60 million on a posting fee instead of pebbles. And he's probably like, but I want to go. And they're like, but you don't have to go if we don't allow you to go. And I'm like, is there like side deals going on where they're like, hey, like, pay us? I mean, you're not allowed to do that, but I'm like, what other reason would you have to tell a team and a franchise it's their business? They didn't make the rules of team control for 9 years, which is crazy in Japan, but they're like, yeah, why would we let you go right now? We're going to lose 50 some odd $50 million if we do. That's a lot of money for those franchises, like a crazy amount of money for any franchise, but that one especially, like those teams out there.
Obviously, I don't know the logistics of it, but when you have a guy who is clearly the ace of your team, who's not pleased or wants to be somewhere else, you need to think of the business ramifications of it, but you also need to think of the team ramifications of it. And I know, he's still going to be professional if they keep him around, all that stuff, but it gets to a point where I heard about Sasaki back when he was 18, I think. So that would have been 5 years ago. Like, there's been talk. It's not like just this year was the first year where he's like, oh man, I'd love to leave. I think he was 20 when he threw those almost back-to-back perfect games. And so it's been something that's been brewing. How it ends up, when it ends up, I don't know. But this is one, I don't want Juan Soto to sign yet. I want to find this out by Monday. I want to know, because I'm very interested to see who gets him.
Yeah, me too. So we either keep the combo going about him or we shut the door for at least another year. So we'll see. And by the way, AJ, I also want this Soto sweepstakes to go for a while because I don't think it's going to hold up the market this time because I only think it's really two teams in the bidding. We're going to talk about San Francisco in a sec. Like it's New York and New York.
Rays. You forgot the Rays.
Oops. Forgot.
Ooh.
That segment was so 5 minutes ago. Let's dig in the weeds. Payroll. We covered the Cubs earlier. Now let's get to the Giants. Hate to be, the bearers of bad news, but the Giants are also potentially taking a little step back from their $206 million payroll from last year. So reports out from The Athletic that they exceeded the luxury tax threshold for the first time since 2018 this past season. And guess what? They didn't make the playoffs. They weren't happy about it. So it sounds like there's going to be a little bit of a tightening up, perhaps $30 to $40 million, it says here in the article. And that maybe guys on their team could be in play for trades to trim some payroll as well, like Lamont Wade Jr., Camilo Duval, Mike Yastrzemski. They still anticipate making significant roster improvements through free agency and potential trades. But it sounds just like we said with the Cubs, like a Juan Soto sweepstakes is kind of off the board for them already. And
Why?
if you're a Giants fan, you thought you were going to keep going up. But the team, the team's kind of putting this out there, even through the sources, right, of Andrew Baggerly. But it's like, it sounds like they lost money last year. They spent more on player payroll, blah, 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 even though obviously there's conflicting reports on how that works when we read other articles. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Like that, we can dispute that part all day. The fact is they're likely not going to suddenly be a $250 million payroll. They're going to be in the 200 range, maybe lower than that. And AJ, that puts them in a position to just do cute things in the offseason, not big things.
And why did they sign Matt Chapman? Why you sign Matt Chapman to the deal you signed him to? What? Why sign him to that deal? Why not just wait and then you say like, "Whoa, man, we signed Matt Chapman to this, but we caught this is stupid to me." You're the Giants. Go get a star. You need a star. You need a superstar. Go get him. His name's Juan Soto. Go get him. Right. Also, why do you bring in Buster Posey and say we're cutting $50 million for your payroll? Like that doesn't make any sense. The fans were excited. Buster Posey's coming back. And you know what I'm most sick of more than anything, Scott and Eric?
What?
Why do we keep talking about teams cutting payroll? They have money. Stop it. Stop cutting payroll. All we hear about from MLB is all the time. Greatest attendance ever. Most watch this. Most watch that. This is up. This is revenue is higher than ever. And every team wants to cut payroll except for like the Mets. Why? I'm tired of hearing about this. Go spend the money. Make your fans worth it. When you up ticket prices, go find better players.
I think this is fake news. I'm not saying Andrew Baggerly isn't reporting what he was told. I'm saying it's fake news because why would you give Buster Posey the keys to the Lambo and say keep it under 25 miles an hour? Why would you not just keep Farhan and be like, hey, you know what, Farhan, we're gonna need you to cut payroll. They have an icon and a organizational icon in Buster Posey at the helm right now. I don't think they're cutting payroll. To me, and maybe I'm looking way too much into this, you're looking at it. They're kind of posturing. In my opinion, you're posturing. Well, you know, we're not gonna spend too much in free agency. So don't be sending your free agents out here looking for extra money. But you know what? We'll still sign them. Like Matt Chapman wasn't even signed last year. He was signed at the end of the season. They didn't just all of a sudden have this come up. And talking about the other part that I feel like is fake, Lamont Wade Jr. and Duval, I get it. Camilo Duval struggled. He got sent down to AAA, all that stuff. Those dudes are making under $5 million. Camilo Duval is going to his first year of arbitration. Now, if you're going to trade him because you feel like his value is up there based on, you know, his value's higher than what they see him as a pitcher, that's different. But they're not trimming $1.6 million off of his first year of arbitration off of payroll. Like it just felt like the information in the article did not support a team that is looking to cut $30 to $40 million. Lamont Wade Jr. is an absolute steal. If you're looking to cut payroll, he ain't the guy.
Yeah, it's probably to be an asset and to be able to fill something else, right? And say, hey, we've got this guy, and you just have to start shuffling the deck. That's what the Mariners do when they're held back and they have to reshuffle the deck constantly, but kind of keep the payroll in the same range. It's a real thing. I mean, it shouldn't be for San Francisco. And also when I looked, I was like, damn, they hadn't been that high in this long, and it's only 206. Like 206 is not that high of a payroll for 2024. You know what I'm saying? Like they finally went back over the luxury tax for a team that's in a massive market, and now they're all by themselves too. I get it. The A's are going to be in Sacramento, but ultimately plan on leaving. Like this team has a major foothold. Their attendance was up. They're saying that the money wasn't the same though, because they did like ticket bundling packages and stuff like that. Also, a really good way to make money, AJ, make the playoffs and have playoff home games. It literally makes up for all of that in 5 seconds. If you have like 5 playoff home games, it makes up all of the crying that you're doing. And I get it. Like we're definitely looked at as what?
I heard this yesterday. I'm in LA right now, right? And I saw a bunch of people yesterday in LA. Take a guess at the amount of money the Dodgers made off just Shohei Ohtani last year.
In advertising dollars, or
like getting the extra marketing deals?
Just the extra money they got from just the Shohei Ohtani signing.
I'm going to say $48 million.
$82 million.
120 is the number I was told yesterday. $120 million they made just off. They paid him $2 million this year. They made $120 million. You telling me if the Giants don't go out and sign Soto, they can't sell 1 million jerseys of Juan Soto in orange and black Halloween time, right? You go out and do this. Shohei Ohtani. Now, I don't know how true this number was, but I was told from a pretty reliable person. $120 million they made off Shohei Ohtani last year in endorsements, sponsorships, whatever you want to call it. Think about that number.
Wow.
Now, granted, Shohei is one of a kind. But there's, Soto's, I guess, the next best thing, right?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, he's not nearly the same on marketability as a global icon.
But let's say you sign him to whatever you want to sign him to, and he makes $50 million a year, and you make back $40 million of that. That's a $10 million a year player. I mean, that's a great bargain for these teams. I don't understand, why teams don't look at it like that. Instead, they want to look at it like we're losing. Every team's losing money. If every team was losing money, then every team would be out of business. Let's stop with that narrative, please.
Correct. And they would all sell too. So it's fake. It's just fake. They say that, but I do believe the story, because this is the same source that said that, Farhan was going to be out and Posey was going to take over and he was going to be involved in this Matt Chapman deal. And he was, but then you see this news and man, Giants fans are freaking out right now. Anyway, on the topic of money, Joe Pompliano is an expert in that field, joining us on FT for the first time. We'll talk to him next. All right, I'll take a question here for the 2 minutes that we have. Our friend Bourbon and Baseball, thoughts about Adames to the Mets talk and moving Vientos to first, because it's funny, there's also a report out there saying that the Dodgers are heavy favorites. That was in Dodger Blue. So, I mean, two teams that make sense to be going after him for different reasons. Dodgers need a shortstop. Mets don't, but Adames would move positions. David Stearns knows him well. For me, I'll answer quick, AJ. I don't think Mark Vientos right now has shown me that he's a full-time third baseman in the league. And I know he's really young and he can definitely get better. But right now I don't see it. And people that are much smarter than me on the scouting end have written about it. So I think he's better off at first. And obviously you don't want to have a DH for a guy that young, but man, he's a great bat. So I do think they're going to try and solve that little conundrum over there.
Well, they also, what about Pete Alonso? But that's a whole different story because he's going to play somewhere if he brings it back. But here's my thing. You know who the winner in all this is? Willie Adames. Guess who he wants in the bidding? The Mets, the Dodgers, the Yankees, all the big money teams. So guess what, Willie Adames? Congratulations. You just hit the lottery, brother. You had an unbelievable year last year, and now you get to pick where you go out of the biggest market teams with the most money. Way to go, Willie Adames. Proud of you, kid.
Former Kratz teammate.
Yeah. What a dude. What a dude. He shows up every day, the energy, all that stuff. And he really was able to kind of spread his wings when he got traded from the Rays to the Brewers. They allowed him to play his game. I get it. There's some strikeout there. but you're playing a premium position and pumping 30 bushes a season. Yeah, there's going to be teams. I think there's going to be a fourth team kind of in that sweepstakes because he is a shortstop. He's willing to move to third. I just think it's an interesting signing for sure.
Yeah, I think there'll be more teams involved, although they're not going to outbid the ones we're talking about if they really want him, but we'll see. He might be a little bit tied to the Soto situation where a team looks at plan B and starts going nuts on the Adames, maybe another starting pitcher, whatever. We'll get into it, but Joe Pompliano joining us in less than a minute. Here we go. Joe Pompliano joining us right now. Sports, money, biz expert. He's got the Joe Pomp Show. Look it up, and does a great job on the writing side too. It's actually, how this all came about. Joe, first off, thanks for joining us. How you doing?
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So I saw in one of your Substack articles a little FT shout out from one of the interviews that we did. I'm like, hey, we should bring him on. So the name of the article was how the Dodgers used analytics to become MLB's most feared team, and how basically they got from being sold out of bankruptcy court to being the league's second most valuable franchise. So what else can you tell us on the research that you did?
Yeah, thanks for having me again, guys. The Dodgers are a really interesting story. I mean, if you think about what has happened over the last decade, I think it's quite remarkable. Everyone likes to talk about how they spend a ton of money, which is obviously true. I think they have nearly $1.5 billion committed to 4 players. So that's obviously quite a lot. But they also did it in sort of an unconventional way, too, where they hired Andrew Friedman. When he was hired at the time, the Dodgers were actually being out-attended. They had sold less tickets than the Angels for the first time in more than 60 years in Los Angeles. So it was quite a different time for the franchise than where they're at today. But he basically installed this process where if you go and you look at their careers page or their employees, it looks like a tech startup, right? There's like data analytics folks. There's this whole department that's been built out. And what I think he's done really well is he's identified these bigger name players like an Ohtani, a Betts, a Freeman, a Yamamoto, et cetera, which are worth the money, and they don't swing and miss on a ton of those guys. And then they do a fantastic job through the draft and building up the farm system, which is sort of difficult to do because they've traded for a large number of good players too. If you think about Betts, Darvish, Scherzer, all these other guys. So as you guys know, it's really difficult to trade for all of those people, but still maintain this great farm system. So really what it was just a shout out to obviously him and the department that he has built out, but also the ownership group in general. They paid, I think, just over $2 billion for this team almost a decade ago. And at the time, that was more than anyone had ever paid for a professional sports franchise. And most people didn't know if they knew anything about baseball because they were these finance guys, but they've obviously proven to put the right people in charge and have won some championships since.
I mean, I think they're doing okay. I think their evaluation has gone up. They've only won 2 World Series, been to the playoffs almost every year. I think the Guggenheim people know exactly what they're doing, Joe. I think they'll be fine. But is this an example of a team with all the money in the world just able to outspend people? Because why don't other teams do the same thing? They don't invest heavily in analytics and some of the people that you're talking about. Other teams could be able to do this. Is it just a matter of the Dodgers have more money, but also the Dodgers get better players than everybody else?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both, right? If you think about Friedman, I think he's probably one of the premier guys in the entire industry when it comes to the analytics side of things. I mean, you guys have had people on the show that have talked about how good the Dodgers organization is at not only collecting and analyzing that data, but translating it in a great way to the players for them to be able to make changes both before and after games, but also during games as well. So I think that's one piece of it. But then when it comes to the money, look, we're talking about a team in LA that has a 25-year local broadcasting contract worth more than $8 billion. So they're at a huge advantage when it comes to local media rights. And certainly a portion of that is spread throughout the league through local revenue sharing, but it gives them a huge advantage too when it comes to signing these big name guys like Ohtani. I mean, you guys were talking about it earlier on the show. I think Ohtani's contract is probably going to go down as one of the best contracts in sports history. And it might sound kind of crazy to say because they paid him $700 million. And how could you make more money on that? But the way it was uniquely structured and the visibility that he's brought in them and the extra revenue that he's been able to get them in the short term when they're only paying him $2 million has had a tremendous impact on the business of the Dodgers. And now it's been reported that they're making upwards of $600 million a year in annual revenue, which is far more than any other team in Major League Baseball.
So what do you think in terms of the impact that Ohtani's made? I know you're a numbers guy and we don't have it. I mean, AJ, I think you heard maybe before this said, he was talking to people out in LA who said he's making them upwards of $100 million just this past season alone, where they're getting all of these extra marketing deals and opportunities with companies in Japan as well. How much of an impact do you think that he's making on a year-to-year basis?
I think AJ's numbers are probably accurate. I've heard similar stuff. And if you think about it, there's a few different buckets that you could kind of group Ohtani in, right? If you look at tickets, the Dodgers led the league again in ticket sales this year. They were already selling out a lot of their games, so maybe he didn't have a huge impact, but anyone who's been to a Dodgers game, you know how many Japanese people are there today. Certainly ticket prices have increased, and everything that went on with the World Series in the postseason gives them extra money as well. He led the league in merchandise sales, along with Betts and Freeman being within the top 10 as well. That money is subject to revenue sharing agreements as well. But one of the secrets with that stuff is that you get to keep a larger share of the money when your own retailers sell the inventory. So that includes, the stores within the stadium, stores they own around the city, et cetera. So all of that money is additive to their bottom line as well. And then the biggest category is by far sponsorships. I think it's been reported that he added an additional $30 million plus in sponsorship revenue to the team this year. They signed 12 new Japanese sponsors. And it actually got so crazy at one point that these Japanese brands were going out and signing advertising deals with other Major League Baseball teams to get their inventory out there for when Ohtani came and played away games. Literally, they sold out of inventory so quick there weren't more options. So tourism is a big part of it as well. And I think he's had a tremendous impact. And look, if you're paying $2 million up front, but you're getting $120 million in return in year one, that number is going to go up over time if the team continues to perform well. And it's all money that is extremely beneficial to have today, given the discount that you can apply to that since you have to pay it out in the future.
Why didn't other teams get in on this? Like if you're looking at an investment that, yes, everyone's going to have to pay $700 million. Maybe some teams would have had to pay more to get him there. But it's not like we didn't know these numbers weren't going to be, they have estimates of how much you could make back. They're essentially, like you said, they're making money on this deal. Why were other teams not able to even offer this?
Well, I think a big part of it is probably that Ohtani wanted to stay in LA, right? There was obviously other teams that are interested, but his desire is a huge portion of that. And the other thing is that the $700 million number is sort of misleading, right? It allows the agent to go out there and say, we signed the largest contract in sports history. But at the end of the day, it's a $460 million deal. That's how Major League Baseball valued it from a time value of money perspective against the salary cap. So the number is significantly smaller than what was being reported at the time relative to what they have to pay. And other teams could have done it, but there's an argument to be made that he's not nearly as valuable in a smaller market as he is in LA.
Joe, I'm going to get to a more global question here. So you're much more on the outside in a good way than we are in terms of looking at multiple sports, right? We're doing baseball hours a day, every day. So when you look at the state of the league from a business component, you look at how the ratings just did for the Dodgers and the Yankees, how much the league made in general. What is your take on the state of baseball? Like, do you think there's a bit of a renaissance period going on right now with the way that there's interest with younger fans? And then the second part of that question is, with all that being said, because we always complain about this, why do we get all of the bragging around the World Series? And then as soon as the offseason hits, every story, every statement just about, except for maybe 2 or 3 teams, is we're broke, we can't pay for anyone. Is that just posturing and deals?
So the way to look at sports franchises is sort of difficult to evaluate how much teams are actually making money. I heard Mark Lazary speaking at a conference the other day. He's a former owner of the Milwaukee Bucks. And what he said was, everyone thinks we're making money hand over fist, but we were actually losing $100 million a year. And I think that's probably accurate, right? I don't think he's lying about it, but he ended up making a ton of money on the team because what you're eventually trying to do is just sell your shares for a larger amount of money, right? And there's a finite number of teams. There's 30 to 32, depending on the league. And the valuations have gone up because they're these scarce assets. So I don't think the owners are nearly as concerned or shouldn't be nearly as concerned about what's going on a day-to-day basis. Certainly that's part of it, but valuations are continuing to rise. The difficult part about baseball right now is that the local media rights have become less valuable. And I think that's where a lot of the frustration is coming from with owners, and some of these stories are coming from. Now, I think it's estimated that about half the teams in Major League Baseball have seen a fee reduction in local media rights, meaning they're making less money today than they were a year or 2 years ago. And that's certainly a part of it. But I actually think baseball's in a really good spot. The ratings this year for the World Series were fantastic. Obviously, having the Dodgers in New York are helpful to that. But the ratings were great. The ratings were even better if you include the international stuff with Japan. I think it averaged about 15 million viewers here in the United States, but internationally, it was probably double that if you add in Japan. So that's all fantastic. But I also think baseball has sort of settled into this good spot, right? Where everyone sees it for what it is today. They produce a ton of attendance. Every single game is well attended throughout the United States. It's a great event to attend for families throughout the year. They have a ton of inventory, which is really great for broadcasters because they have inventory throughout the months. They can put the games on broadcast. They need more content. And then it's become a sort of a local rating stalwart where fans within the local markets are watching these games every single day. So you have sort of a floor for viewership, which I think is great. And then you have a ton of people attending games, which is primarily where they make most of their money. So I'm not nearly as bearish on baseball as a lot of other people seem to have been over the last few years. I think it's one of those things that has become sort of cool to say. But when you look at the facts and the money that's been coming in from all the different categories, it feels like it's quite the opposite today.
The part that bothers me, Joe, is when I read articles just now about the Braves, since they're publicly traded and have to give you a lot of information. And I'm reading, and this is definitely not my expertise, right? I don't have a finance degree, but I'm like, damn, they're making money. And I don't even see certain components that they own. And I know they're kind of a model franchise right now because they essentially own a small city, the Battery, all around the ballpark. But it does play into what I've heard many other teams have, which is a number of other businesses that feed off of their team. And those businesses are usually separated, especially if they become profitable. So we don't get that, right? Like, am I off here or am I on?
No.
Like,
you're totally on. I'm glad you brought this up because it speaks to how professional sports organizations are changing. So the example I like to use is Mark Cuban, who owned the Dallas Mavericks for 20 years. He recently went on a podcast. And one of the things that he mentioned was if you look at when he bought the team, I think it was in 2002. From 2002 to 2010, the franchise valuation actually went down. It didn't increase, it went down. They then signed this massive media rights deal, and franchise valuations have escalated a lot over the last decade because of that. They signed another one, valuations are going to continue to go up. But he just sold his shares in the team. I think he owned around 100% before. He had a couple partners, but the vast majority of the team. Now he owns just under 30% of the team. So he sold most of his shares in the team. The reason why he said he did that is because the economics of a sports organization, not just in basketball, but in baseball, the NFL, et cetera, are changing. And the reason why they're changing so much is because where valuations have multiplied because of media rights over the last 2 decades, that's changing. That's no longer going to be happening because if you look at the media rights landscape, the NBA just got this massive new deal, $76 billion. And the NBA was able to get that because they timed it up perfectly, right? If you have these cable companies who used to have more than 100 million subscribers, but have lost 20, 30 million subscribers over the last number of years, they have to continue paying up for these rights because it's the only thing keeping their business alive. Then on the other side of the demand equation, you have companies like an Amazon, a Netflix, Apple, et cetera, who are getting more and more involved in sports, and they have more money than they know what to do with it. So when you put these two things together, it drives the rights higher. But that's eventually going to flip, where these cable and these broadcast companies aren't going to be able to pay that. They're not going to be able to double or triple media rights over the next decade. So my point is, you now have to look at other sources to increase revenue. And Mark Cuban's point was that now all these teams are looking at building the Battery, right, in Atlanta. They're looking at building these mixed-use developments. They're looking at building casinos. So he went out and he partnered with Miriam Adelson and the Adelson family, who owns the casino business in Las Vegas, to come to Dallas and potentially build a casino around their arena there. I think it's incredibly smart. He's going to continue to hold some of that upside with the 27 or 28% that he owns today. But if you look at franchise in the future, it's not going to be about media rights. It's not going to be about ticket sales. It's going to be which organization can build these real estate projects around the team and around the stadium to entertain fans and get a larger share of their wallet on game days. And to your point, a lot of that revenue gets excluded from the primary business. And I think players and agents like a Scott Boras and stuff like that are super intelligent about it, right? They know, hey, look, you guys have more money than you're coming out and saying, and we want a piece of that because you guys are profiting and we deserve some of that too.
Joe, what? I understand 100% what you're saying. I agree. All teams have money if they want to spend it. It's just a matter of how they want to spend it. Why? You mentioned the NBA and their TV rights deal. The big issue right now in MLB is every local team has their own deal. Why wouldn't the MLB, and I know it's easier said than done, buy up all the TV deals and centralize it into a thing? Yes, have your own broadcast in each market, but centralize it and say, all right, kind of do what the NFL did. I know there's more games, but MLB goes to Amazon, YouTube, whatever it is, and says, hey, we'll charge $700, $800. You get every game, no blackouts, right? Or if you just want to buy, let's say, Dodgers games, you get, you pay $200 for just Dodgers games for the year. Or you like on a per game basis, you charge, I'm throwing random numbers out there, $5, $6, $7, $8 out there, because the cable market is kind of broken. We all have kind of agreed to that. The way the cable works is kind of broken. But why would MLB or any sports league not do that? The NFL does a great job. I mean, look at how much money they made off YouTube buying the Sunday ticket away from DirecTV. Why would MLB not try to do that and make it into one lump thing where every fan knows, all right, I have to go get YouTube to watch any game I want and go from there? Because I feel like it would be a huge win for MLB in the long run.
Well, I think that's where we're headed, right? If you look at baseball and Major League Baseball, the organization, they've taken over some of the local rights for the contracts that, have gone bankrupt, that aren't willing to pay or are decreasing in value. So they're going to start broadcasting more of these games. I think they're doing about a third of the teams now. Maybe that goes higher over the next 12 to 24 months, but we're certainly headed in that direction. I think the reason why we haven't seen a model like the NFL has the best business model in all of sports, bar none. There's this crazy stat about the NFL. Obviously, it's not the most popular. If you look internationally, soccer is a global sport. But if you look at the top 5 global soccer leagues, like the EPL, La Liga, Serie A, et cetera, those 5 leagues make less money combined in a year than the NFL, even though the NFL's business is so much smaller from an audience perspective. And the reason and the way that the NFL has structured it is they do all these national deals, right? So they package all the games together, they go to the broadcasters and they sell them all. But then they also do these one-off events. So Amazon paid $100 million for Black Friday. Netflix is paying $150 million for Christmas Day games. They have the Peacock special at $100 million for the playoff game, right? And they're now doing all these one-off inventories. They're going to do the same thing for their international games as well. They've structured it amazing. The difficult part about baseball, in my opinion at least, is that you're going to have some of these teams that don't want to be part of that, right? If you look at the Dodgers, I mentioned their local media deal earlier. They're making so much more money out of their share, the money they get to keep off that deal, that it doesn't make sense for them to be part of the other package, right? And their deal is so long-term, I think it was 25 years at the time that they signed it, that money, it could go away technically, right, if they file for bankruptcy or something else like that. But theoretically, that's locked in for so long that they're not worried about it at all. The Yankees and Yes Network are in a similar situation. And there's probably a handful of teams that wouldn't want to be part of that, where the bottom tier of teams would want to be part of that, even though they're getting a larger revenue sharing check because of the Dodgers and the Yankees. So to your point, I do think we're headed in that direction. It's just, how does Major League Baseball convince the highest earning teams like the Dodgers and the Yankees to be part of that arrangement?
Yeah, I like that. You don't. I mean, I'm super on the other side of this, but yeah, I mean, I would never do that if I'm the Dodgers, Yankees, etc. So it is a very good argument, and it's why our sport's just much more regionalized too. So there are big differences. I certainly don't see teams making a ton of money with the league set up right now.
No, I wasn't saying that MLB should do that.
Right.
I just was wondering why MLB hasn't tried to do that. And I get it, because the regionals are
They
great
are
for
trying.
baseball.
They're
And
failing.
they're great. No, I know. But I'm saying, like, I love the regionals because you get your own announcers, you get your own stuff, you get your own programming. I'm not against the regionals at all. I actually like that model. But then when people say, well, why blackouts and this and that, it's because of the regional model. And listen, it's good right now.
Well, I'm sure you guys have done a ton of stuff on this, because I know it's a conversation point. What is the best solution to blackouts?
Streaming, actually what the Cardinals are doing right now. Now you can get it streaming. It just happened yesterday. So you can watch it on TV for that crowd. It's also the same channel as the Blues. Obviously, sure, you can say I'm biased because we're on FanDuel Sports and all of that, but like I think it is the right model. And now fans can just sign up for a service and they get it. And the problem's over. And it's not all run by a league where I used to work there. You don't want them controlling everything. You want to be able to have these conversations, which you can't if you're working for a league office. So I'm obviously very strong.
One of the models that I've seen that seems to be getting more popular is teams within a specific city teaming up to do a streaming service for all of their games, right? So if you're a Yankees fan, you're probably a Knicks fan, a Rangers fan, a Giants fan as well, maybe some of the other teams, right? But if you can get 4 or 5 of those teams in one package and tell fans that you're going to charge them, I don't know, I'm just throwing out a number, but $40, $50 a month, that seems like a lot, but to have all of those games located in one central place where you don't have to worry about any of the other cable packages, that's kind of a win for fans. And maybe that's where we go in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with it. Fascinating. Hey, well, Joe, this was great. Appreciate the time. Every team's stupid for not signing Shohei Ohtani. Definitely wanted to make that the point in resolution, in conclusion. But check out what Joe's got on the table. Of course, we'll post some of these clips. Got a big following on Twitter and his show as well. You can find it. Just Google it. Thanks, Joe. Great to have you on here for the first time. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. We'll be right back on FT. Do you think this is a race between the Yankees and the Mets, and he's just going to go to the highest bidder?
Yes, I do believe he's a New York guy in like through and through. It's the vibe. First of all, he fits. The one interesting thing is I would always say Yankees, but for some reason, every quote we get from Hal Steinbrenner is just like I imagine him just like wringing his hands, like I don't know if we can do that, and Steve Cohen's like holding his checkbook as you ask him the question. So that's where the difference is for me. But I think that I think it's pretty clear. If Juan Soto could choose anywhere, he'd just be like, yeah, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to the Bronx because this is like my personality in a franchise. And it just makes sense. He's just like, you can become a legend and that's where you do it. And he's already there and he wants to be a legend. So I think that he would prefer to, but like, I just think that Steve Cohen he's a wild card, man. He's just a wild card and they did their rebuild year and then went to the NLCS. So, but they need pitching. So it's going to be like, I don't know if they wait to figure out Soto and then make other decisions, or if they go get other decisions and let that affect Soto. That's going to be the thing, I think, that changes these dynamics really quickly. But I would say he's going to be. For example, we had a signing bonus for my last year in Oakland tacked onto the end so that I would be paid when I was in Seattle, when I had moved home, because I was technically a seasonal worker in California, just so that I could get no income tax. We don't have income tax in Washington either. That's 13% more money. If it's, for example, here's just a nice round number. That's $1 million. That's another $130,000. That's just 1 million. So if you extrapolate that over these massive contracts, you can get, it could be insane amounts of money, like another contract out of it, right? Probably, especially with Soto, it's probably your whole bullpen's salary worth extra. So that's a real thing, and that's a seller. I mean, if the Tampa's not using that should be what they lead with. We don't have income tax because it's again, they're not going to be able to match all of the numbers all the time, but that will sweeten the deal a little bit because it's something you don't have to worry about, and something, if you're going to do it, you're going to take advantage of these paydays for this short amount of time. You want to get everything you can. So yes, that factors in a lot, and it's funny. But it only really matters, like the difference between, for example, New York, which is 13, I believe, or somewhere close. California and New York are always hopping each other. Say it's like, the difference between 13 and like 9 somewhere else, it's not as big of a deal. But between 0 and 13, huge deal. And when it comes to Tampa, you don't have that many things to entice people, so you got to use that.
FoulTerritoryShop.com. This is the time, actually, if you're like, I don't know what to get for so-and-so. So check it out. We got the polos, we got the hoodies, we got the t-shirts, we got the coffee mugs, or whatever you want to do. I don't know if you want to put a little.
Can we get a quarter zip? quarter zip? Can we get a quarter zip?
No, I don't want one.
Why?
Why do you? You like quarter zips?
Yeah. Look at what I'm wearing right now. It's
That's what all the GMs wear.
gonna
exactly right. And
I want to
you know what
fit in
quarter
at the
zips
GM
are?
meetings.
Yeah,
I
right?
don't.
Quarter zips
wanna
are like
stand out.
for winter meetings or any baseball game, but quarter zips for men are like the sundress for a woman, right? Like you can kind of wear a sundress to a nice dinner. You can wear it here. You can wear it there. A quarter zip you can wear golfing. You can wear walking down the street, or you can wear it to a nice dinner because guess what? You can pop that collar when you need to, right? So I mean,
You'd
it's
rather
like
have that
it's
than the
like
polo? I thought the polo was the big
No,
debate
polo's
behind the
good, but
team.
you know, it's
Okay.
sometimes it's chilly in Florida, and you need the little longer sleeves. You know, you can roll them up.
All right. Well, for those watching on YouTube right now, drop in the chat what item you think should be next at foulterritoryshop.com. And we'll kind of crowdsource it and we'll have a big meeting about it. Those are the important meetings that we have on Tuesday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern time. All right. Anyway, can we hit That's What He Said?
Yeah, that's what he said.
That's what he said.
That's what he said.
That's what he said.
All right, so this was my idea, so it's probably stupid. So I'm going to take a different spin on this, and it's
Yeah,
not
it's
as much.
stupid.
Thank you. It's not as much about what the Orioles are doing. It was actually more of a question for you guys on relatability. So I'm going to read this quote from Mike Elias. Okay, try to think really hard to what he's saying. Ready? We just went through a team sale and got a fresh new ownership group that is very well equipped, robust, and eager to get going. They understand that there's some measurement to how you do business, and they're empowering us to look for opportunities that are going to bear out well. We have everything that we need from them if we find those opportunities. And if finances are what's required for us to execute on those, I'm very confident and bullish that those are going to be there for us. The best way to put it is that this ownership group is going to enable us to run this franchise optimally. It doesn't mean that we're going to do things that are short-sighted or destructive long-term. I mean, if I was running the team, wouldn't I just be like, yeah, this owner's better and he's going to give us a little more leeway with budget, so we're going to go get ourselves a pitcher and a bat if we need to replace Santander. Shouldn't that have been the answer in 4 seconds versus 35 seconds of GM speak mumbo jumbo? That was more my point here. I'm like, I don't know. I just feel like you're not being relatable when you answer like that. And I would say this to Mike. I'd be like, Mike, why can't you just say what I just said?
He lost me. You lost me when you started.
Thank you. That's my point. So actually, Kratz, look, I did it. I came up with one good segment.
That was great.
Okay, I'm out. Thanks, guys. Have a good show.
Finally.
See ya.
Finally.
AJ thinks I'm cool, and I'll see you next year.
Or maybe Mike Elias actually doesn't know how to go in. He just knows how to continue to build for the future and continue to keep his job. Now's the time. Now's the time to be reckless. You have one less year again. You traded your closer 3 years ago at the trade deadline. Your team was hovering right around 500. The team collapsed. The next year, you didn't go all in to get somebody else. Your team made the playoffs, and then first round out. This year, your team kind of faded towards the end of the season, first round out again. This is the time. This is the time. This is when I say, if I'm Mike Elias, either I want to work for the Orioles for the next 25 years and just squalor and mediocrity with the prospects that we have and just awesome, or this is when you say, we're going to take over the American League East, guaranteed for the next 3 or 4 years. This is my plan, and we're going to execute it.
Okay, Kratz, let me ask you this, and Scott's finally out. If you were the Orioles and you're Oriole fans and you're Mike Elias and you're the new ownership group and you had to trade, and this is their top 10 prospects right now, and I'm not even including Jackson Holliday or Kirsten Hiersted. Kobe Mayo, Samuel Basallo, Vance Honeycutt, Enrique Bradfield, Chase McDermott, Dylan Beavers, Griff O'Farrell, Juan Nunez. That's their top 8 prospects. And for those 8 prospects, you could have gotten Tarek Skubal last year, and I don't know, who was another starting pitcher that didn't get moved, or another that's I'm just trying to think of another one that was out there that didn't get moved. Garrett Crochet. And you go on and you win the World Series with those 2 players. Is it worth it?
100%. There isn't
what are
a
we
question.
waiting on? Then what are we waiting on? You think the Dodgers cared they trade away players for Flaherty and Kopech and Tommy Edman? Hell no, because they won the World Series. They don't care. They couldn't
They're
care
not-
less.
The Dodgers aren't looking at Trey Sweeney going, man, like, we wish we still had him. They're looking at the World Series rings from Tiffany's, and they're creating them. They're building them right now. And not only with those two guys, Tarek Skubal and Garrett Crochet, they'd be still on the team next year, this season. They're still on their team. It's not like it's a 1-year rental and you just depleted your farm system. If your farm system is that awesome, I don't even think you need to give away all 8. I just think, you could have probably done 4 to 6 of those guys. And it's nothing against those guys. It's nothing against those prospects. It's about the fact that you rebuilt for so long and now you have an opportunity. There is a time when you have all the cards in the deck and you have all the power to push all in. You might get beat. It might not go well, but you still will continue to build a farm system because you've built it. You have a good model. Don't hold on to all the prospects. Hold on to the 3 to 4 year window that you still have Gunnar Henderson, that you still have Adley Rutschman. You just lost a year now. You don't have Anthony Santander. You're going to have to pay him. You can't trade a prospect for Anthony Santander, so you have to be willing to push at certain times. And to me, I felt like while it was GM mumbo jumbo, it felt like it was the same rhetoric that he's just constantly been saying. It's like sitting there somebody that's 60 years old and they've always shopped for groceries and everything in their life with coupons. And now they have a lot of money and they're like, well, I'm still looking for my coupons. Like, no, go out, live your life, be the Orioles, have an opportunity to take over the American League East. And I don't think they have so far, but hey, I'm hopeful this is the offseason they do.
Yeah, true. I just think that they need to just make these moves, because how many of these prospects, when you see big trades for big players, how many times do these prospects really pan out into stars? How many times do we see whoever was traded for whoever, the prospect? Look at Miguel Cabrera, Dontrell Willis. I mean, Cam Maven was a good player. Andrew Miller was a very good reliever, but they didn't turn into the superstars that people thought they were going to, right? Some of these trades, they very rarely turn out when you trade 5 or 6 people for one guy. It's very rare where someone turns into that superstar. So why not make these trades? If you think one guy's going to be a superstar, keep them. But the rest of them are expendable. I'm sorry.
And by the way, Miller was a bust for them. It took a while after that for him to become
It took a
reliever
couple
and all
teams
that.
down the road for him to figure it out.
Yeah.
And listen, Cam Maven's on the show. He's great. And we love Cam. I played with Cam, but he didn't turn into the star people thought he was going to be.
That's one of 10,000 examples of how this always plays out. No matter what, the only guarantee in life is that when you look at the top 10 in the Orioles system, that only a few of them are going to be really, really good players. And the trick is figuring out which ones those are. But anyway, I wanted to bring up that quote because optimization's driving me nuts. Just talk like a human. We'll talk to Pete Abraham about a team that could teach them a lesson. The Red Sox, full throttle, baby. This is the year. Out of the year.
It's what? You were partially muted.
Do you want to see the strikeout of the year?
Worst strike call. Worst strike call of the year? Yes.
Yes. Here it is. Our buddy Pitching Ninja.
Fastball is
96
right
down the
for ball one.
pipe. Oh, man, I talked over him, but he said fastball is right down the middle for ball one. That was good. What are you
It
raising?
was high. AJ had it high.
Too high. It's too high.
Poor Ryan Blakely. Ryan Blakely was like, he just wasn't ready for that first pitch of the game. He didn't think Cole Reagans was going to be throwing that hard. The next pitch was down and away, like good bottom of the zone pitch, and he banged. He got it right. So he just wasn't ready. You got to be ready for the first pitch of the game.
Think he was
He
trying
wasn't.
to set the tone, AJ? Like where pitchers are like, hey, like
No.
the pitcher knows what he's doing first pitch, right? And for him, he's like, I don't want to give him that big strike call yet. I don't want to like kind of blow my big call. So I'm going to just start.
No, he just missed
slow
it.
here, ball one.
Mistakes.
I'm kidding.
Mistakes happen. By the way, if you haven't seen the Ken Kaiser White Sox video, go back and watch that one. First pitch of the game, hits the guy, hits the umpire, the catcher misses it. It's worth it. Google it. Hits Ken Kaiser, the umpire, right in the face. And then the next pitch, before the pitcher even lets the ball go, he's like, ball two. And the catcher and the hitter is Tony Phillips. I'm like, what? He throws it right down the middle, ball two. And then Bevington is the manager. He comes running out, and he's like, what? Kaiser's like, they hit me in the face. I'm woozy. I don't know what's going on. I mean, just trust me. It's worth watching. It's like a 2-minute clip. And then you have Hawk on there going, I don't know what's going on. I mean, it is, trust me. It's the same thing. First pitch, he misses, but the catcher misses it because the shadows hits him in the face. And then he's like, yep, okay, ball two the pitch hadn't even been let go. And he's like, ball two.
Hey, did you ever feel like the shadows were tough for the White Sox at their?
Yeah. I thought Detroit was tougher because of the background. Chicago was okay, but it was quick. It was quick. It was like an inning, and it was over. And I usually didn't hit in the first inning, so I was good.
By the way,
like a day game, like an afternoon game.
Now later, when the games used to be 4 hours, but now they're over in 2.5 hours. You don't have to worry about it.
I just wanted to let everyone know, after that Ken Kaiser situation, the league called and said, do you want to call the World Series? I'm 2 for 2. All right, I'm on.
What a
All right, here we go. Pete Abraham covers the Boston Red Sox for the Boston Globe, joining us back here on FT. Give him a follow at Pete Abe to see what the Red Sox are up to. Pete, happy Friday to you. The guys are laughing at my joke, so do you want to try and bring us down about the Red Sox and what you think expectations are for them this offseason? Do you think we'll see those reports that come in from people going, Red Sox were in on so-and-so, or will they actually win some big-name players?
That's the big question, and I think the good thing is they haven't come up with any stupid catchphrases about what they're going to do this year. They managed to avoid that so far. But talking to Craig Breslow in San Antonio the last couple of days and talking to some agents there, the Red Sox do seem very serious about wanting to improve the team finally and to use whatever methods at their disposal that they have, trading some of their prospects, including perhaps guys out of their big four, and spending the money on free agents. They understand they have a weird team. They have too many right-handed hitters. They don't have any left-handed pitchers. They have too many left-handed hitters, I should say, and they don't have any left-handed pitchers. It's a weird mix that they need to figure out how to bring it into balance, and I think they have the ways that they can do it.
Wow. Okay. Yes. Listen, I talked to Alex Cora, and he said the same thing. Even their prospects are left-handed hitters, right?
Yeah.
They need. You're in Fenway Park. You have the Green Monster. Listen, right-handed hitters are where the power's at, right? I know they had David Ortiz, but you also had Manny. You also had, Mike Lowell when they won. You had Euclid. You had all these right-handed hitters that could also hit the ball out of the park to left field. So I agree with you. They need to find right-handed power somewhere. But before we dig into this whole thing, I think it's your right shoulder. Let me see, right shoulder, left shoulder. You have a bobblehead of George Costanza. You are going to lose your Red Sox fan card because he worked for the Yankees. So when people see that, they're going to say, what is Pete doing having a Yankee employee over his shoulder?
Oh, here's what I'm doing. So the Red Sox, for some reason, the Yankees had a bobblehead day when the Red Sox are in town, which doesn't speak very well to where the Red Sox are, I guess. And it was a George Costanza traveling secretary bobblehead. I get to the park that day. I get off the subway. I'm walking to the press gate. There's like 500 people lined up to make sure they got this bobblehead. So they gave it out in the press box. I'm like, yeah, heck yeah, give me one. It's probably going to be worth something on eBay. So I took it. Hell yeah.
There. Yeah. I like that. And I think it's a great piece. It fits in well. He's got a bat in his hands.
It was when he taught Jeter and them how to hit.
Yeah. It's all about
That's
physics.
Great. I love that.
Right. It's all about physics.
All right, I'll jump in because I do have a follow-up to something that you said to the first question. Do you really think they would trade one of their big four prospects? And isn't this something that a team doesn't need to do when they can just acquire the problems that they need to solve?
Well, you guys were talking about that before. Every great prospect doesn't turn into a great major league player.
True.
And when the Red Sox traded for Chris Sale, it was a 4-player package. It was highlighted by Yoan Moncada, who's basically a career underachiever that hasn't done what he was supposed to do. Michael Kopech was supposed to be an ace starter. He's a very good reliever, but he's not an ace starter. And the other two guys never ended up in the big leagues. So why would you not make a similar trade with the White Sox if you could to get Garrett Crochet and give up somebody, figure out which of those guys. They've got 6 guys in the Baseball America top 100. 6. They're all position players. They have redundancy at shortstop. They have some redundancy in the outfield. Figure out the guy that you think is surely going to be the best of the bunch and keep him, and then trade the other guys to get pieces that you need. I mean, Dave Dombrowski did a really good job of that when he was here, and they haven't done a good job of that since.
Wait, are we talking about the Orioles or are we talking about the Red Sox here? Have a redundancy
same
of
thing,
prospects
right?
at positions, but we don't want to get rid of them because we need 5 shortstops in the future and 6 third basemen and 8 left fielders. I don't understand that. The hoarding of prospects has gone to a whole new level. I played with Craig Breslow. Craig, please change that and go get people you need.
And it seems like there's way too much focus on, we've got this many top 100 prospects, or we've got this many guys who are all-stars in the minor leagues. The focus is winning playoff games in the big leagues. And if there's a ways to build your team that are more than just free agency. Now, I think the Red Sox need to do both. They need to invest in some free agents. There are some guys out there that would clearly fit their needs, but they also need to use some of these prospects and understand that, the idea is to win the World Series, not to win, awards for how good you are at player development.
Wouldn't that be the superpower for Craig Breslow? When you hire a GM that has played in the big leagues as long as he did, isn't that so is he mandated to hamstring himself to not trade these guys? Or is it is it something that's coming down the line right now that, he's going to trade these guys and he's going to kind of model almost after the Rangers, where Chris Young came in and he was like, I played, this is how we're going to build this team. We're going to build it a certain way, not the way that the current front office in baseball builds teams.
Yeah, I don't know that Craig has any mandates necessarily, but he has, I think, trying to change things from the previous administration under Chaim Bloom, where they were clearly, I think they put way too much emphasis on hoarding prospects and, the value of those guys, that they could never touch them, and to their detriment, really, because the Red Sox are 2 games under 500 the last 5 years. 5 years. And it's the Red Sox. I mean, they've got to get to a point where they can be better than that. And frankly, like you guys were talking about, you can't have 6 shortstops and 7 outfielders and all of these guys. At some point, one of those players' best value to the Red Sox is to trade him.
So let me ask you, because we're getting this from some of our fans in the chat right now, what do you think is the ideal strategy on the pitching side of things, specifically the starting pitching? So I know they're going to wait to see if Pivetta takes that qualifying offer, but even aside from that, who's the big boy that you see them getting? I know you mentioned Crochet, but anyone else like free agency wise too, like a Corbin Burnes, you think in play, or a Max Fried?
Max Fried would make a lot of sense because they need a lefty, and their rotation has been very right-handed for a couple of years now. I don't know that they'd want to spend the money that it would take to land a major free agent starter. John Henry has said he's against the idea of spending money on pitchers who are older than 30 and investing in those big contracts, and there is some sense behind that. I do think they could trade for a guy like Crochet and then use free agency. Like a guy like Teoscar Hernández would make tremendous sense for the Red Sox. They need right-handed power. They need a clubhouse presence. He's a perfect fit at Fenway Park. A guy like Tanner Scott would make a lot of sense for the Red Sox. They need a lefty reliever. They need somebody with strikeout stuff. And Liam Hendricks is theoretically their closer, but he hasn't pitched in a year and a half. So you can't necessarily walk into the season saying, well, we're all set with closer. If you have both Liam Hendricks and Tanner Scott, then you have a really good bullpen. I think a guy like that will be a test case for the Red Sox if they're willing to go to what it's going to take to sign him in free agency, because he makes a tremendous amount of sense for them.
Okay, let me ask. This is the one thing that drives me crazy about early in the postseason or early in the off season, right? The hot stove. Every team checks in on every player. So when you hear from certain people that, hey, the Red Sox checked in on Teoscar Hernández, and they checked in on Juan Soto, and they checked in on this person and this player, and they checked in on Max Fried. Guess what? Every team does their due diligence and calls an agent of the top players and says, hey, what are you thinking? So can we stop that? Like, I don't want to hear the rumors until there's actually an offer on the table. And by the way, why the heck would the Red Sox not want to go get Juan Soto? I know he's left-handed, but he's got power to left center. He would fit beautifully in there in the middle of their order. Him and Devers hitting back-to-back. Wow, are you kidding me? Plus, you throw in Casas, you throw in some of the other guys, Jared Duran. Yes, they're left-hand heavy. I get it. But still, like, you have the money, John Henry. Trust me, Liverpool makes a lot of money. Spend some of your Liverpool money on the Red Sox, please.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying the same thing Red Sox fans have been saying for the last couple of years, AJ, and it's been frustrating because they do seem to have the base of talent where if you added some guys, you talked about adding somebody with Devers, that they could be a good team again very quickly. But for whatever reason, and I don't think it's, Red Sox fans are trying to make it sound like, they just don't want to spend. I don't think it's that they don't want to spend. I just think they've underestimated what it would take to get certain players, and they get beat out by other teams.
What about my last one is Pivetta. Do you think that he ends up taking the qualifying offer, or do you think he should take that? I mean, you've seen him more than we have. I've seen many of his starts, but I feel like other teams might think they can unlock something, even though he was part of a good group just now that was helping others do just that.
Yeah, I find that whole thing interesting. He made $7 million last year, and now he's got a chance to make 21. So part of me says, well, how can you walk away from that? That's, you're going to get 3 times more than what you got paid the previous year. But I've also heard when I was in San Antonio that there are teams out there that see him as a guy that they would pay $60 million to and sign him to a longer term contract. So his agents really got to do some work and figure out if that market is there for Pivetta. I mean, what's his ceiling? I think it's maybe like a number 3 starter, but it's hard to find starters. And this is a guy who throws a lot of strikes. He hasn't been as good as I think he could be. He fades in the second half sometimes. There's some secondary pitches that he needs to work on, but he has a good fastball and he throws strikes. And I'm sure there are teams out there that have looked at his stuff, and everybody talks about stuff more than performance these days, but have looked at his stuff and said, this is a guy that we can turn into something more than what he already is. So to me, boy, I don't know how he walks away for $21 million after making 7, but I bet you he ends up in the market.
Pete, before we let you go, all right, I want a prediction from you for Red Sox Nation out there. Who do they sign? Give me 3 guys that they legitimately are going to try and sign.
Teoscar Hernández, Tanner Scott, and I think they'll end up with a starter, not necessarily Max Fried or one of the bigger guys, but I think they'll end up with a starter because I think they're going to trade from what they have. I think they're going to try to change their mix and trade a righty to get a lefty or just change up what they have now and create a better balance. But I think, to me, Teoscar Hernández, that's the guy Alex Cora wanted last year. They didn't get him. He's back on the market this year. I think he's the guy they're going to probably put a lot of focus into.
Well, if they sign those two and they get a starter, they're back kind of in the mix, I feel like, in the AL East, right?
They should be. I mean, being around the Dodgers in the World Series, there are a couple of guys who had a great quote. They said, Ohtani is the MVP of the league, and Teoscar Hernández was the MVP of their team because of what he did in the clubhouse, the way he balanced their lineup, the things that he did for younger players. That's the kind of guy the Red Sox need. That's without a doubt the kind of personality and the kind of player that they need.
Yeah, his price went up. They should have went after him last year with a legit multi-year offer. I mean, his agent was like I loved it, very transparent on social media about the whole situation and how he wasn't getting the big multi-year offers like he thought he should. And that ended up being really helpful for the Dodgers to win a World Series. So I like it.
And the Red Sox were one of those teams that they didn't come up enough to get him.
No, they were in on Teoscar Hernández.
Full throttle. Put the throttle down. Put the hammer down.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. The in on it. Yeah. AJ's right. When you get to this part in the offseason, I mean, I'll do it every day. Contenders like player X at foul territory. Like it's crazy. Yeah. We got to get,
my favorite one was the Rays have checked in on Juan Soto. Have they checked in on him owning 50% of the team? Like, what are they checking in on? Like, is he going to
funny.
He does roofing. And they need a roof.
Yeah. Hey, maybe the Rays can play in JetBlue. Maybe the Rays can play in JetBlue the next 3 years down in Fort Myers, and then that way when they go to Fenway, it's like they're at home.
I know people that would be very bothered about the traffic all year for that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, it's funny you mentioned that though, Pete. We did have Marc Topkin on for the ballpark part, but also because the Soto rumors floated out there, we're like, all right, let's have fun and squash this and just say that was cute. And there's really 2.5 teams in on Soto. But anyway, Pete, awesome having you on. Good to see you. Enjoy the offseason. I'm sure we'll have you back when they do actually land someone.
I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Follow Pete at Pete Abe on Twitter. Really easy to find him and check out his work in the Boston Globe. Be right back. BetMGM Futures National League East. Wow. Are you guys surprised that the Braves drop a little minus 105 on you? I mean, that is
No.
you're not surprised. You're not surprised it's in the minus level? You think there's that much of a favorite?
No, but I think people bet on him because of the injuries from last year. So they're trying to get money on him.
I think I mean, obviously, I'm not saying the Braves aren't going to win the division. Again, the point of these few minutes here is for us to tell you where you can find value and where you should be careful. Laying down
Mets.
105 to win a hundo. Yeah, Mets are really nice value there at plus 375. The season they just had, the spending they're going to do, and that number is going to change. That's what I always want to warn people about. If you think the Mets are going to be active in the offseason, if you don't think that, first of all, you're crazy. But if you do think that, then and you think it's going to pan out, and you believe what you saw this year from certain players, then the plus 375 piece is very intriguing. Don't touch the Marlins. I think the Nats are still probably a year and need to prove it in some type of free agency in spending. But am I wrong here, where the Mets look like a massive, massive play in this division?
Today, get this number. I mean, with the fact that they could spend 200, they could raise their payroll from where it is today to another higher $200 million. That plus 375 is going to be down at like 250. I'm not saying they're going to move ahead of the Phillies, but that number is going to move. So today is the purchase. Pick up your phone, lock it in.
By the way, are the Marlins ever going to hire a manager? I mean, come on, we're like mid-November now. We're not. I mean, the World Series has been over for a while now. Like, are the Marlins ever going to hire a manager? Is this the longest the team's gone into the offseason without having a manager hired?
It's not the longest, but this is the longest when there's not some significant hurdle in the way. This is, I don't want to say sketchy, but there's stuff going on. Let's put it that way. There's stuff going on. I'm not saying I know what that stuff is, but I think there's something going on, and hopefully someone will report on it when it happens.
Think about when you go into an interview and you're like, "Ooh, yeah, I'd love to have this job because I want to be a manager." And then you go in and talk to the guys. There's no structure right now to the organization. It's not like you're going into a permanent spot. It's just no structure.
There's the code for you, up to $1,500 back in bonus bets. Use the code FOUL. Gambling problem or concern, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Be right back. Our friend Brody Brazil, leading off Hot Corner, does a great job reporting on the game. And obviously, if you follow him, you've seen that he's not working with the A's anymore, but he's super plugged in with that audience. And I thought this was a good poll because this goes back to something we spoke about. He said, Oakland MLB fans, what's next? And here on the poll, 24% said they are following the team to Sacramento. 28.5% they're sticking with the Ballers, which is obviously not a major league franchise, but they're sticking with the local pro team. Then you've got 29% saying choose another team. And all the way there at the bottom for 19% is what the league assumes, is that they're all just going to jump over and be Giant fans. I mean, think about it, okay? Like, I grew up in the tri-state area in New York, New Jersey, right? And I'm around all Mets and Yankees fans for the most part. If one side lost their team, I would think the last team that they would end up rooting for would be the other team. Now, I get what MLB is saying is, well, we don't care about that generation. Screw that generation. The next generation is going to select the team that's local. Maybe. I mean, you definitely have a much higher chance with that. Although I will say most people go off their fandom from their family. So if the family suddenly adopts another team, like just name a team, the Nationals, then the kid's probably going to be a Nats fan, and they just won't go to games as often, or they'll go to the games when the Nats are taking on the Mets if they suddenly were Yankee fans. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I just wanted to clarify that. Also, he did forget one part in my mind, which I've seen on our comments a ton. Huge number of them just said, I'm out. And I guess that can be looked at as the people that are rooting for the Ballers, but a lot of people were just like, I'm serious, I'm checking out on this front, which I always say is kind of what I did when the Nets left New Jersey. I was like, I mean, I've now, maybe watched a little bit more of what's going on in the league, but for a long time period, I was just like, I don't have a team anymore that I root for in Jersey, so it's whatever.
I think we as baseball, it's a regional sport. It's marketed regionally. We just keep cutting out more and more fans. And I get it. People are going to say, who cares about the minor leagues? There's small little factions, small little communities that have lost a lot of teams. This is major. This is a major city. This is a major population that's going to lose a team to root for. And probably kids that are, 18 years old right now, they're not going to choose another team. They're definitely not going to choose the Giants. Maybe kids from like 7 to 12 years old who are playing in Little League are to start to become Giants fans. But it's a big miss by Major League Baseball. Anytime they're cutting entire communities out of having their niche in their city, having a team in their city or their small town, talking about minor league teams, it is a huge miss because it really is a niche regional sport that stuff needs to be exploited and celebrated.
Yeah, easy for towns to rally around stuff like that. All right, let's get to one other story here in Hot Corner, and we'll actually continue the Garrett Crochet conversation. He was talked about so much leading up to the trade deadline. Then you had his side essentially telling the White Sox he's not going to pitch through the postseason if he didn't get an extension. Still, teams were going after him. White Sox didn't take any of those final offers. So Buster Olney and Jeff Passan wrote, they're hearing that it's a slam dunk. He's going to get traded to teams that Buster's watching, the Mets and the Red Sox. Passan says teams trying to acquire him know that he will sign an extension. So I guess that gives him more value in the trade market if you know that you can lock him up for more years. I think at some point, maybe next week, we should do a video or a segment on, say top 5 players that we think will be traded, right? Because we talked about Devin Williams. Crochet needs to be involved when we're talking about starting pitching fits for teams. I thought it was a great point by Pete Abraham to us, AJ. He's like, sure, we can talk about Burnes, we can talk about Fried, but this ownership group is pretty analytical and they're super big on the age curve, talking about the Red Sox and John Henry, and they don't like guys that are in their 30s that are free agent starting pitchers. So they're going to look at Garrett Crochet and say, cool, much cheaper. We can have him for a couple years. We can try and sign him for more when we get him, and we'll give up one of our billion prospects right now. I actually think that's a good idea.
It makes sense, but will they do it? I mean, in years past, they haven't pulled the trigger. Will they do it? Like the Orioles, will they do it? Why doesn't he fit in Baltimore? They can afford to sign him to an extension, right? They can afford to have a million prospects. Why? I mean, the White Sox would take whatever they can get, the best package for him. So let's do this. I mean, there's a bunch of teams that could use a Garrett Crochet in their starting rotation with what he does. And he proved he could start every 5th day last year. And so his innings limit goes up. And I just don't understand why, slam dunk he's dealt. Yeah, but I hope Chris gets a great deal for him and gets the best prospects possible. And those prospects help them turn that organization around. But he is a piece that can get you 4 or 5 possible pieces down the road.
I like this. I like Crochet for those 2 organizations way more than I do the Mets. Not saying the Mets don't want him. Not saying they couldn't, give up a Luis Angel Acuna for him or somebody like that. But I think Boston and the Orioles, just historically, have not been in on the Corbin Burnes sweepstakes, have not been in on what Pete was saying about pitchers over 30 in the free agency. I don't think it's right, but they haven't. So to me, if Chris Getz can get both those organizations to bid against each other with prospects, that's where he gets the most value. And this will be the start of Chris Getz's legacy. I mean, it would be so ironic. Another power left-handed arm going from the White Sox to Boston for some prospects. But hey, to me, you got to get it done.
Yeah, I agree on the Mets front. I think.
But hold on. Before I want to mention what Kratz just said, though. What did Pete Abraham say about Chris Sale? Look at the players they got back. And that was supposed to be literally a franchise-altering trade for the White Sox. Moncada didn't work out. Kopech has turned himself into a nice reliever. But he, before that, was up, down, back, forth. But he went to LA and turned himself into a good reliever. But the other 2 guys, they never even played in the big leagues. I don't even know their names, right? So if you're an organization, look at that trade and say, this is something we should think about doing.
Yeah, the other two were Victor Diaz and Luis Alexander Basabe, along with Moncada and Kopech. So that was
Who was
a
the third
huge
guy?
bust.
Who was
Kopech, Moncada, Luis Alexander Basabe, and Victor Diaz or Diaz. I don't even know who that is.
Basabe? Basabe wasn't the guy that ended up with the Rays, was it?
There were
Basabe,
two
he was-
Basabes. We could
Okay.
spend 5 minutes on the Basabes because I think if you look back, that was the story where the Diamondbacks traded for the wrong Basabe. I don't know. You got to. I don't know enough, and I just remember talking about that story on the radio back when I was doing that. But anyway, we don't have time to do all the research on that. I will say I don't think Crochet for the Mets because I think they'll go after free agent starters, and I don't think they want to give up the prospects. I think the whole point for the Mets the last year and a half was we do not have enough of a farm system. Now I think they've already done that pretty quickly. They put together some really nice pieces prospect-wise. I just don't think that that's the play for them, but I think it's very much the play for a team like Boston. And also, here's the money part. His projected arbitration numbers for the next 2 seasons until free agency, 25 and 26, total is between $10 and $15 million. So you're getting a potential number one starter for about $6-7 million a year. Can't beat that. No. So highly coveted.
Who says no?
All right, well, let's talk about numbers then, because I know a player who's going to be a Hall of Famer who had a pretty catastrophic injury after winning Rookie of the Year. I know you didn't win Rookie of the Year. I thought you should have been higher in Rookie of the Year voting, but we're not going to discuss that right now. You had an unbelievable rookie year. I think you are one of the more underrated players, and I think the Reds' record this year really reflected that they didn't have you out there this year. And that's my opinion. I'm not asking you to comment on that. Have the Reds. Uh-oh, you didn't move at all. They probably are trying to change.
Got to wave your hand. Got to wave your hand,
No,
man.
yeah.
They're saving
Motion.
There you go.
There it
They're
is.
saving electricity. They're saving electricity at Reds game. Alex Goodyear.
Dodgers, actually.
Oh, you're out at the Dodgers. They're not saving any
Yeah.
electricity.
Yeah.
Got to pay Shohei. Can't pay for electricity.
Yeah, can't pay for that.
He's in Glendale. He's a desert dog, Kratz.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
What I
That's
was.
my bad. I was thinking rehab, all that stuff. So I'll get to it. Saving money. Have the Reds approached you about an extension?
No, they have not. No.
Would you want them to? In the state that you're in, because my buddy got approached. My buddy got approached when he had a pretty catastrophic injury, and he ended up getting a small contract offer, played the next year, did unbelievable, and got a large contract offer. Would you want them to approach you? Because to me, I think you are the heartbeat of that team. Obviously, I'm a big Matt McLean fan.
I mean, personally, right now, I don't think it would make sense for either side because, like you said, it would be small and it wouldn't make sense for them, honestly. I mean, I was hurt all last year. And even at the end of 23, I had the oblique at the very end of the year. So I don't think it would make sense for either side at this specific moment. But that's, yeah, I don't know. We really talked about my shoulder at the time and just how the rehab process was going. He was trying to catch up and, get a feel for me. And then I was just trying to connect and talk to him. We got a little Big 10 or Big 12, whatever it is, connection now, U of A and UCLA. So we had talked about that a little bit. But yeah, no, he's great. Obviously, he's a legend, and everyone speaks very highly of him. So I'm pumped.
Let's slap. Happy, what birthday is it? Just give everyone a second to guess. Oh, well, Kratz just gave it away. Giancarlo Stanton is 35 years old. You didn't even let me say the player. I was going to give everyone a few seconds to guess what age he is. Do you think people think he's 35?
I mean, if you watch Baseball Reference as much as I watch it, you would know. But
They have a show?
35. Yeah. I watch that John all the time. Always scrolling around on my computer.
Yeah, you are, you nerd. Happy birthday, though, to Stanton. He's at 429 home runs.
It's a good day for birthdays, by the way.
Who else you got?
There's a lot of good. Well, we got Edgardo Alfonso, ex-teammate of mine. Shane Halter, who once played all 9 positions against us in one game, which is kind of cool. But the Shredder, Nick Punto, the original Piranha's birthday today. I mean, there's some nice ones out there. I mean, Jerry Remy, the Rem Dog. I mean, listen, there's some good. Joe Nossick, the best sign stealer in the history of baseball. There's some good birthdays today.
Happy birthday, everyone. And Kratz hats, orange.
Yeah, since AJ's bringing his Christmas Starbucks cup, I got to bring something about, at least some kind of fall colors of some kind. And you know what? Giants might sign Ha-Seong Kim because he's probably looking for a one-year bounce back after being injured. Get him on the cheap.
Yep.
Best part about being a Giants fan is it's Halloween every day.
Right. So you can act like whoever you want to act like. You can act like a big market team or a small market team.
You could act like the Pirates or you could act like the Dodgers. You choose.
Exactly. Yeah. And man, the Dodgers are spanking them right now in that division.
Why?
The Giants really had it for a while.
We didn't even get into this, but let's talk about this for a second. We only have a second. But Ha-Seong Kim. So the Giants say we're going to cut payroll, but we're also going to sign Ha-Seong Kim. Wait, what? Like, what are we?
Well, he's not expensive. Well, they're not. They're going to do things. They're just saying that it's not going to, like, their payroll can still be 195 when they add a couple guys and subtract a couple guys. It's just their point was, or the article's point was, don't expect to see that low 200s number like you saw this past season. So Kim's not going to be $100 million player or something. I mean, he's coming off major shoulder surgery. This is exactly the kind of bargain the front office is like. AJ is, first of all, going to talk to Perry Manasian on Monday. We all are. He'll be on the show. Angels GM, we're excited for that. And then AJ, you're going to check in from your first golf tournament on the tour.
Folds of Honor, great organization, Monday. Only if one thing happens and one thing only. If I'm safe, because I'm supposed to jump out of the plane with the Army Leap team, Army Jump team. A guy does an ex-Navy SEAL is supposed to strap me to his chest and let me fall to earth in a parachute. So if I make it there, then I'll be on the show. If not, you guys pick me up off somewhere.
Yeah,
that's a big parachute. Carrying you and a Marine, that is a big parachute.
No, SEAL, not a Marine.
SEAL.
Not a Marine, a SEAL.
Yeah.
Either way.
Make sure he presses the button. Press the button.
Nice knowing you.